It hurt his wife, it hurt him, it hurt his children. He now knows this. He now realizes it after the fact, and he's still suffering because of it. And so is his kids, and so am I. I'm still suffering because when I talk to him and he's drinking, he gets nasty with me. He tells me, things he says things to me he should never say to his dad, like shut up and f off, and because he's drinking. And so I think that that is a result of just claiming there's no God. Now, everybody doesn't, obviously, not all atheists go to that level. Some atheists don't drink, and maybe they live a more moral life, but they just don't believe in God. So I don't know. There's a lot of different scenarios we can look at in all this, but um, as far as Christ fulfilling, I could show you scriptures, and as I did yesterday about after his resurrection, he said to them uh, that all things must be fulfilled that were written concerning him in the law and the prophets and the Psalms, right there. Now, this is after he rose from the dead. So you have to ask yourself, well, did he really rise from the dead? Well, I do believe he did. I believe this is, after he rose from the dead, and there were witnesses, and even the shroud, I think that's evidence too. And but if he didn't, then, I wouldn't think that Christianity would be that much different than some of the other religions if Jesus didn't come back from the dead. And then he raised other people from the dead too. It's recorded in the scriptures. And so these are all things to consider when you're looking at, truth. He said, I'm the truth. And well, if he is the truth and the truth is him, then truth doesn't change. So, I want to harmonize with and be in agreement with him, with truth, with reality. And part of the problem with humans is we, like you said earlier, we'd rather have our imaginations and our, than reality sometimes. But anyways. Okay, so I hope I didn't make matters worse by saying too much.
Oh, well, it's a lot to keep. Oh, I didn't see your text. I guess you must have posted it and talked to them. And he said unto them, These are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which were written in the law of Moses, and in the prophets, and in the Psalms concerning me. So, this sort of thing came up for me. I don't, we talked late night or just, I don't remember what we said between what I thought about and what I actually verbalized. I had kind of like a crisis of faith, I guess you could say that, as a young adult, having taken some Bible college and having done my own Bible studies up until that time. But what I was running into was various things that seemed to challenge the authenticity of the Bible. And this was one of them. What about Christ's return? Right? Now, I was convinced, and I think I still am, full disclosure, that Christ did not return. And so this became a problem, right? What about this language that says that he should have returned roughly 2,000 years ago? And am I okay with all this imminent language? Soon, even at the doors, unbow yourself, your judgment draweth nigh. Within your lifetimes, all of that. And the only thing that sort of mitigated against it, to my recollection, was, well, with a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years. Uh, I don't know if that's enough, right? That just that felt dishonest to me. It didn't. It just didn't work. Um, and so that played some part. I don't know to how significant of a part, because that was one issue among at least several that was like a chink in the armor of, the authenticity of the Bible. And now I think it was around then that I learned of this concept of preterism, and I only looked at that sort of at a glance, and I thought, well, well, first off, like I said, it was against my imprinting. It was difficult for me to give that a serious look, I think. It's like, it's a paradigm shift, and you know how our belief systems are sort of like a computer network. You can believe something. We generally believe things, and we think of, if we think about why we believe something, there's sort of like a network of ideas that support this core belief, or maybe the various beliefs we have. In order for that belief to go down, several of these computer nodes have to go down, the ones that support it. Because if just one goes down at a time, the system has its own redundancy built into it. And so, well, I still believe that, even if this part isn't true, right? I believe it for several other reasons. You may not be cognitively aware of those other reasons, but you often can go, well, yeah, because this or because of that, and so on and so forth. And so my network, my belief network, if I can call it that, just simply wasn't oriented to support preterism, and I found my network collapse enough to where I just came to think, okay, well, Christianity at best is not, let's see here, is not literally true, but perhaps it could be true in some sort of other way, right? Like, well, not something as loose as my mother said, we do it because it's fun, but we do it because it provides meaning and morals and community, things that fulfill the human, the human condition, as opposed to, oh, well, we're just a bunch of animals, and really nothing really matters. Which I think, in some sense, that's ultimately what bare atheism leaves you with. You have to, if you're an atheist, it seems to me you have to adopt something else, like maybe that's akin to religion, in order to have some sense of morality. And but if you restrict yourself to that which is kind of like empirically verifiable, it seems like you're in a state of that song that says nothing matters, right? Nothing really matters. And I don't know that I cringe at the notion, at the idea of what would happen to society at large, to humanity, if in fact that message takes hold, right, of the greater population. And I think that message has taken hold too much already. And so I feel a little bit kind of like in a battle for the soul of humanity in that respect. And it's it's interesting that, um, well, just the path that it's taken me, for me, it's personally interesting anyhow. Okay, I'll pass the mic.
No, again, some really good insights, and there is a battle for the soul of human beings. It took a lot to get me from where I was to where I am. It took time. I spent a lot of time, and so in my own life, looking back the last 30 years, there were a lot of good things that happened, a lot of good works, met so many people. I think I've been a blessing to many. Many have been a blessing to me. And I would have not met all the people and done the things that I've done if I hadn't had faith in God. It would not have happened. I would not have been where I was and even am today if it hadn't been for I want to call it the grace of God in my life. So, but yeah, when people have no moral standing, nothing, what are you standing on if you're, I mean, what is the foundation of your life? That's a question. My foundation was basically you get a job, you try to live right, you retire. I mean, this is what I was taught by my family, which is good. Obviously that's a good thing. You get a job, you serve others, you make money, you retire, and then you die. I mean, that's about. And I tried to live that way, but it didn't work out for me the same way it did for my dad. My dad worked this 37 years the same job. I couldn't keep a job for two years. I think the longest I had a job up until a few years ago was 2 years. And then I did have a job where I worked like 10 years selling saunas, and I worked from home, which I really enjoyed. But I don't really think that is the foundation of my life. Is just you get it, and that's what I was taught. To me, there's something way deeper, something way greater, something way better, and that than that notion that's it. You just do this is the way, which those are good values. But I just couldn't fit into that paradigm the way my parents did. And I think there was a reason why I couldn't fit into it. God had a different plan for my life. If I were to fit into that paradigm, I would not be living in Florida right now. I'd probably still be living in Michigan, working some job, or maybe just about to retire. And it would have been a totally different life for me. But mine got so screwed up. And I was questioning, what am I doing here? What's my purpose? Who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I here? Those are questions. And I just didn't have the answers. And I was looking in the area that I was taught. Okay, your purpose for living is to find your career. Do that, and then everything's going to be fine, find have a family maybe, and which I wanted to do all that, which I have. I'm happily married now, but we took care of foster kids, but we adopted one child, and we still help orphan kids around the world. But I would have never done all that if I hadn't come to know Christ. I wouldn't have. And so that's what was lacking in my life, and I didn't know. Well, I mean, my mom was kind of religious. She was Catholic, and she believed in Jesus, but she couldn't really teach me much, if anything, really about God, except by her life, which actually was a teaching in itself, because my mom was the most kindest, gentlest, generous, forgiving, loving person that I knew. and she was always cheerful. She was always happy. She had trials and tribulations, but even through it all, she had this joy. And now I know why. She really did have an encounter with Christ when she was a little girl. But then she stayed with the Catholicism because that's where she had the encounter, was with the nuns in Roman Catholicism in Italy, because she grew up near Rome. And so that was her experience. So she stuck with the Catholic, thinking that was it. But and a lot of people do this too. They experience God in their different places, and they think, oh, this is the right place. Well, just because you experienced him there doesn't mean that that's the right place. It's just because that's where he was able to reach you, and you had this experience. And then people stay there, and then they get stuck, and then they get confused because they start listening to all this nonsense that nothing happened yet. And it's just, so I look at the scripture. The Father is seeking such to worship him, and he is. He's looking for us to come before him and just bow down and say, "Whoa, Father, you are so good. You are so great. You are God, and there is no." And how do you do that? Only by faith. It's by faith that I know that I'm connecting with him, and I feel it in my heart, and it's like, oh, this is where I worship him, in my heart, and he's seeking such. So people are searching. And then when they have the encounter, then they still got to grow up. You've got to seek first, because if you don't, you're going to be deceived by all these religious I want to say stupid, but and none of us has everything. I mean, none of us. I cannot be, I can point you to truth. That's about it. That's about what I can do. Now, I see him working in people's lives and all this stuff, and it's like, wow, that's cool, Lord, wow. That's why I'm here. You do something through me too. So, but I was in a dilemma, man. I was like, who am I? I literally went to a class called Who Am I? And it was this Catholic lady, Mary Ryan. Her husband was Judge Ryan, and she was associated with the Catholic Church where I grew up. I was still lost, but I was, and had just gotten married to Patty, and in that church, and I was like, wasn't feeling satisfied, was still like searching. And so she had this class. I took the class, and in the class, this trauma from my early childhood came out, which helped me to understand me better, what happened to me and why I was the way that I was. It really helped me to understand. And then I dealt with just working through forgiving these people, what they did to me. And then I think that fear was blocking my receptivity to God, because perfect love casts out fear, right? What if you got tons of fear and you're not receiving love? Then you're just fearful. Yeah, I found out what had happened to me as a little child. It was horrific. And I had buried the memory. Nobody knew. I mean, I couldn't tell anybody. I was threatened if I would tell anybody, they would kill me. So I had a lot of fear growing up. And then the fear that I had, it was like some of the religious stuff actually contributed to more of the fear. And it was like, now I'm afraid of God. And I don't even know God, but what they're telling me about God scared me. Well, if you miss Mass on Sunday and you don't go to confession on Monday, you're going to hell. That's what they told me as a little child. These people who are in authority over me in the school, these nuns, told me that. That is like spiritual, super spiritual abuse for a little child. To hear that kind of garbage. Nothing could be further from the truth. You don't even have to go to church to be in right standing with God. All you need is some faith in Jesus. That's it. And they don't teach that. So I was totally confused by all that. The nuns in the Catholic school, the nuns taught that. Now the abuse, these that I was raped as a little child, was some people that I never saw before in my life, and I never saw them again afterwards, and they were just older teenage boys that were just totally perverted. And so I won't go into that, but it traumatized my life, caused me a lot of fear. So the fear was part of my subconscious mind all the time. And now I catch myself. I start feeling fearful, and I'm like, it's irrational many times. And so it's like that was ingrained in me for so long. But faith if you really have faith, there's no doubt, there's no fear. If you have true faith, even the size of a mustard seed, Jesus said, whatsoever things you say, believing it in your heart, you're going to have what you say. Well, if you have that kind of faith, there's no fear and there's no doubt. There's no doubt. See, if you have that kind of faith. Yeah, it was terrible. But it was part of my experience, and I learned so much from that. If I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have learned as much as I have about, the psyche, the soul, the subconscious, and how it affects people. And a lot of the homeless you see out there on the street, you know what? If you talk to them, you'll find out something horrific happened to them in their childhood, their relationship with their family, their parents. There was one lady I met. This couple, and she had been raped when she was younger, and it messed her life up. She was raped, and so she gravitated towards another person who was messed up, an alcoholic, and she loved the guy, but he was like, no. He was almost like, hey, you shouldn't even want to love me, but she did. But if she did, she would beat him up. She would get drunk and punch him in the face. I mean, I went there with his black eyes. So I'm just saying all this because the subconscious mind, the effects of evil on people's psyche, the effects of sin on people's spirits and souls and bodies is catastrophic. It's debilitating and it's destructive. One of the things that Jesus said, and I think I might have shared this with you yesterday, if not, it was somebody else. And my friend David Hunt shared this with me. He said there's a version that says this. It says it this way, a different version of the scriptures, different. He said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, so whoever believes in him might not destroy themselves. You know how it says perish? Well, he says a version says they might not destroy themselves. Well, this is what humans do. This self-destruct. And there's many things, and it can go back to childhood. It can go back to subconscious fear. It can, immoral lifestyle that